What's up everyone, it's Cherrow here. It's time for another video. So today I'm gonna be ranking all the treasures in Cookie Run Kingdom in a tier list. I'm gonna show you all which treasures you should and should not use. Let's get right into the video. So I just want to say my tier list is credible because I'm a certified pro because I reached Master 1 as a free-to-play. So how I'm gonna rank these treasures is how well does the treasure fulfill its job. So here's what I mean by that. So for example, the Jellyworm Sticky Goo gives your cookies more survivability, but it doesn't do a good job at that because the invulnerability only lasts for like less than 4 seconds. But the Gatekeeper Ghost Horns gives your cookies a lot more survivability because it's a permanent increase in defense for all cookies by 45%. So the Gatekeeper's Ghost Horn does a lot better at survivability than the Goo. We're also going to classify how well the treasures do against the 3 types of enemies. So the first type of enemy are just normal enemies, which is PvE. The next type of enemy is cookies, that's PvP. The final type of enemy is bosses, which are just boss fights, and also guild battle in particular. So here's the tier list. On the top we have treasures that are good in general, which means you can use these treasures anywhere. Next we have treasures that are good in PvP, and then treasures that are good against normal enemies, then treasures good against bosses. Next we have extremely niche treasures, which are treasures I don't recommend you use at all, and are only useful in very specific scenarios. I mean like very specific scenarios. And then there's garbage treasures, which you shouldn't use at all. So if you wanted to see letter labels instead, this is what it would look like. The general treasures are SS, and they're the absolute best treasures in the whole game. And then the treasures I recommend for the other 3 game modes are all S tier. And finally, the outclassed treasures are all just F tier. Anything in the green you shouldn't be using at all. But anything in the red and orange, they're good choices. Alright, let's start ranking. So the absolute best treasure in the whole entire game would be the Old Pilgrim Scroll. Oh yes, the Old Pilgrim Scroll increases attack for cookies by a flat percentage. So my scroll increases the attack by 46.2%, and at level 1, it gives a flat 30% attack. If giving your cookies a permanent 30% attack boost sounds OP, well that's because it is OP. Here, I'll show you why. So I'm gonna use Sea Farty against this boss right here, without any treasures at all, and I'll show you how much damage I do. 88k. So yeah, 88k. So now I'm gonna equip the Old Pilgrim Scroll, and this is the same exact Sea Farty right here. Look at that! 129k! Look at that huge difference! So that's why the Old Pilgrim Scroll is the best treasure in the whole game. So the scroll is also good for PvP, normal enemies, and bosses because it's that OP. The next OP treasure we have in general tier is the Squishy Jelly Watch. The Squishy Jelly Watch has a straight up 25% cooldown, and I assume you have a max Jelly Watch because common treasures are extremely easy to max out. So let's compare it to my Cotton's toppings. I put a lot of cooldown on my Cotton's toppings, and the most I can get is 24.4% cooldown. That's not even as much as a Jelly Watch. So basically the Jelly Watch is a whole entire free set of cooldown toppings on everybody, at the cost of being free. So that's why Jelly Watch is OP. The Jelly Watch is also really good in PvP against normal enemies and bosses. So that's it for the general category. For PvP we have the Scythe. The Scythe gives you a lot of crit rate, and this just boosts the damage of all your cookies for free. It also synergizes really well with a crit build Caramel Arrow, like what I have here. It also goes really well with Cream Puff too. We also have the extremely popular Insignia. Whenever one of your cookies die, all your other cookies get healed, and the healing's quite significant. There's also a Last Man Standing treasure. So the last surviving cookie gets to be invincible for a short while. So this treasure used to be made for Tea Knight. It allowed Tea Knight to be the last cookie standing and sweep the entire enemy team. But Tea Knight isn't meta anymore, so we don't really use Insignia for Tea Knight anymore. So now we're using Insignia for normal teams like these. because the healing of the Insignia is too good, and it also lets you pull off some really clutch plays. And oh man, this treasure is extremely popular, so that's why I recommend it for PvP. Next we have Caramel Arrow's best friend, the Enchanted Robes. Now let's talk about the speed user, Caramel Arrow. This treasure pretty much turns her from good to OP. I'll show you what I mean by that. So here's the boss again. I'm gonna use Caramel Arrow with no treasures, and I'll show you how fast he attacks. Alright, look closely. Yeah, she doesn't attack that fast. Now I'm gonna equip the robes, and let's see the big difference. Oh yes, look how much faster it is now. It's also a lot more satisfying. The robes are a good PvP treasure because Caramel Arrow is used in PvP a lot. We now have the Sugar Swan Feather. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, watch this. I'm gonna use Sea Farty alone with the Sugar Swan Feather, and I'll show you how she gets an additional attack in for free. Okay, watch this, watch this. So she gets an attack in here, she dies, and then she gets a second attack in. So basically her DPS just got doubled. That's why Sugar Swan Feather is good in PvP. Now we have the Pincushion. So this Pincushion only works on summoners and summon units, or maybe just summon units, I'm not sure. Increases the attack by a significant flat amount, and it also increases the summon duration by a flat amount. It's good for summoners, there's not much to explain here. The only time you should be using this treasure is in summoner comps, but summoner comps in Arena are actually really good, so that's why it's a good PvP treasure. And finally, for PvP, we have the Monocle. This Monocle clears debuffs and restores some HP to the whole party. So there's a lot of debuffs in the arena. That's why the Monocle is good. It can cleanse all those debuffs. These debuffs are caused by popular units like Dark Cacao, Caramel Arrow, especially a Claire's Weakness debuff. Sometimes it cleanses Sea Fairy's stun, and I'm pretty sure it cleanses Frost Queen's freeze. I'm not sure though, because I haven't used her much. It's good against all these cookies that cause debuffs. So against normal enemies, we have the good old Scythe. It's just free damage. Forgot to mention this, but it also causes your healers to crit, so you heal more, and that's important in PvE. Next we have the Ghost Horn. It just straight up increases defense for all your cookies by a flat amount. It's most likely gonna be 45.4% because it's a common treasure and it's really easy to max out. So it's just free damage resist, who doesn't like that? It's not as good in PvP anymore because there's better options for survivability, but it's still good in story mode. And it's also an extremely beginner friendly treasure, I like it a lot. Here's Caramel Arrow's best friend yet again, the Librarian Robes. Since Caramel Arrow is still viable in story mode, we also have the Monocle. It's good for cleansing debuffs from enemies like these annoying cut purses. That's why the Monocle is viable in story mode. And finally, we have the Sugar Swan Feather. It's good as a safety net, so if one of your cookies die on accident, then you can just revive them and still get 3 stars in the level. For bosses, the only thing you should be using is Scroll, Watch, and the Slingshot. Those are the only 3 treasures you should be using for boss fights. 69.6 defense break towards a single enemy. That's OP! Only for a single enemy though. The Slingshot absolutely gives the most damage towards bosses. It out damages any other treasure besides like Scroll. You're gonna have to take my word for this, but I've been doing a lot of testing. I learned this the hard way, but the Slingshot is the best. So now let's move on to the really bad treasures. So the first treasure in the extremely niche category is the Lollipop. So y'all know the original Kumi Scam team? The 2 cookies with the highest attack, their crit rate and attack damage gets buffed by a lot. In the old Kumi Scam team, the Lollipop buff would go onto Sea Fairy and Frost Queen here. So the reason why the Lollipop isn't that good anymore because there's a lot better options. So now there's new modern Kumi Scam teams, something like this. And for some reason, people like to run Insignia instead. I'm not sure why because I don't use Kumi Scam. So the Lollipop has been completely replaced by the Insignia. Perhaps it's because now they're adding tanks into the Kumi scam instead of just DPS cookies. And people like to have more survivability than just raw damage in Kumi scam teams. So that's why the Lollipop is trash now. Next we have the Remedy thingy. So the Remedy thingy used to synergize really well with T-Knight, but now that T-Knight isn't meta anymore, this treasure also isn't meta anymore, and it's just completely lackluster in story mode. Like, this thing only heals like one cookie, but if you want a healing treasure, just use the monocle instead. That's why the Miraculous Natural Remedy, so that's what it's called, that's why this treasure isn't good anymore. Now we have the Blind Healer Staff. The Blind Healer Staff heals a cookie over time, keyword over time. So overtime healing's bad as it is. It's also completely outclassed by the Bookseller's Monocle. It's better to heal 5 cookies instead of 1, so that's why it's trash. Please just don't use it. Next we have the Conch. 60-second cooldown. Do I even need to explain anything else? It's trash. And then we have the Tree Branch. It's pretty much just an anti-Kumi scam treasure. Like, it prevents your whole team from getting one-shotted by a Kumi scam. But the thing is, not everyone uses Kumi scam, and it's not that common nowadays. So that's why the treasure is bad. Next we have the Ice Cream. So all it's really used for is cheesing Storyboat 1123, where you want a one-shot wizard cookie so you can get 3 stars in the level. People run Scroll, Slingshot, and Ice Cream. The Ice Cream has a massive defense break of 49.6%. The Slingshot also has a massive defense break. So what people do is give Wizard Cookie a massive defense break, and hopefully their overpowered team one-shots Wizard Cookie so he can't fight back. That's literally like the only use for the Ice Cream. So it's a really bad treasure. And finally, the Paper Charm. It used to be used in Super Mayhem Seasons 1 and 2, where whenever you beat a team, then the next team after that, they all have shields, and this treasure can just break all those shields instantly, and make the battle a whole lot easier. But as you know, the shield mechanic's never gonna come back, because in Season 3 of Mayhem, they removed that mechanic. Now, the treasure is absolutely useless. Okay, so now for the garbage treasures. We have the Flamingo Tube. It gives your 2 tankiest cookies more health, but like, why the heck would you need more health on your tanks? So the treasure's garbage. We have the Coin Purse and the Goblin Safe, both completely outclassed by the Tree of Wishes. Completely garbage. The Jelly Goo, less than 4 seconds of invulnerability. That's super pathetic. And finally, we have the worst treasure in the whole entire game. The Elder Pilgrim's Torch. The Elder Pilgrim's Torch is beyond garbage. The Elder Pilgrim Torch does more harm than good, and will absolutely keep you from progressing in the game. So, actions speak louder than words. So I'll just show you all how OP the torch is. Just look at that! Look how much damage it deals! 36.2%! Oh my god, that's so OP! Y'all ready to witness his power? Ready for this? Ready? Witness the might of the torch! Oh my god, look at that! Look at that! 4,000 damage! Oh my god, it's so OP! Look how much damage it did to these enemies! I can totally see why people like using this treasure now. Witness the might of the torch! Oh, look at that juicy damage! Look at that! Look at that! It's so OP! So there you have it. The official tier list. This is the only treasure tier list you will ever need. Alright, so if you found this video helpful, please subscribe, cause I'm poor. If you want to see more tier lists like this, then you should definitely subscribe. So, see ya.